tarot is not some ancient occult divination method. It originated in, I think, the 11th century and is in fact Italian. No, it did not originate with the Romani people, which I can get to later. It didn't even start out as any particularly spooky, mystical, occult thing at all. But turn of the century, when there were a whole lot of a certain type of grifter, it gained popularity as basically a huge lie, something to kind of pad one's already dubious occult credentials. It started off as playing cards, a really huge deck of very pretty playing cards that were used for, I think it was a variety of different card games. Like, you can use regular, what we consider the regular cards deck now for lots of different things. And I looked up some of these games, and to me they are very, very convoluted and strange, but I suppose that's what you could probably gather from a deck of 78 cards. For those who aren't super familiar with what a tarot deck actually contains, there are, I'm going to butcher the numbers, but I know there's 22 of what's considered major arcana, which is what you might have seen as death or strength or the chariot, the more main overarching kind of things. And then all the rest of them come in the suits of cups, swords, wands, and pentacles, which do correspond to the suits in a traditional deck of cards that we know today. Because of these weirdos who wanted to be famous and rich, lying that it was some ancient Egyptian divination to the gods, tarot decks are associated with divination. They are used by a lot of people who consider themselves witches and pagans, myself being one of them. And if you think that's contradictory, you're not going to have fun on the rest of this channel. A lot of people consider religious and otherwise spiritual practices as having to have specific mandate, and it has to be a tradition from somewhere else. But a lot in neo-pagan circles, there are, like people at turn of the century, who just kind of take an authority's word for it and say, oh, someone else said this was an ancient thing, so I'm going to go ahead and do it in that capacity, which, for obvious reasons, I don't agree with. However, if there's a certain sense of self-awareness and honesty, where you're taking the concept of something and applying it in a way that's not necessarily ancient or traditional or archaeologically sound, I am of the philosophy, if it works for you, then okay, as long as you're honest about it. And that is why I'm drawing my own tarot deck. All 78 cards. Cue montage.
So while I show you how I use my T-square to draw the box that I draw inside, I never draw to the edges of the paper, I'm going to go ahead and describe to you what I am actually doing overall. The four suits, when they're connected to occult kind of spaces, are fire, water, earth, and air, which I have tried to kind of bring out, but they're not perfect boundaries, I guess. Those suits, though, can also, when you're using it for at least divination kind of stuff, can also be emotional and resources and things you can actually hold in your hand, and spiritual, and then also when you're taking action, you're literally doing a physical thing. In me and my purposes for wanting to do this crazy thing, like drawing 78 things to put on a teeny tiny thing, I've tried to bring up things that kind of resonate more with me, and if you've looked at a lot of my other work, there's a very strong theme of like liminal spaces and dreamlike kind of the word you might hear if you look more into like, ooh, liminal spaces and the occult is astral, and there's a lot of like very out there kind of stuff. It's a whole spectrum, but for as long as I can remember, I have had really vivid dreams. I used to be the little kid who woke up and went, hey, I had a weird dream, and I would tell people all about it. I think in hindsight it helped me remember my dreams even better. But I remember when I was, I want to say 6 or 7 or 8, somewhere in there, I started having the occasional lucid dream. So since I was in single digits, I've had some very, very strong imagery and some very, I don't even know how to describe it. I view things in a certain way that has, over time, come out more and more strongly in the art that I do. Even though I do have a fine arts background, but I describe my couple years of college as I learned how to be more disciplined and how to get things done, but I also learned who should really, really not be a teacher or in charge of anyone at all. Which basically results in taking all of the rules that make things cool and fine artsy and move everything 3 inches to the left, which I think you'll see as things progress. So the apple that we have here is in pentacles, which is mostly associated with earth. Here we have cups, obviously, which is typically seen as emotional. And the first one that I did that I was talking over was 10 of Wands, which I've decided I want to do in various types of lights, because I love to play with lights and contrast. It's challenging, but it's also really satisfying when I get it just how I want it to be. And and I obviously want to do some fun knives and stuff for swords, but in doing Ace of Swords, I wanted to start off setting some expectations. And so for swords, there's going to be at least some writing utensils and some other unconventional things. Oh, and there we go. That's something that you don't get with digital art. No. And I did want to do at least one of the major arcana, which is what most people recognize as like the cards. This is going to be my version of the moon.
What have I done? What have I done? As I said, they're 78. This is something I've wanted to do for a very long... This is something I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I initially thought I would be doing it digitally, but we're gonna be doing it, I almost said by hand, all of it's by hand. I'm gonna be doing it traditionally. There will be physical original versions of every single one of these. And yes, all of them will be made into prints because I need to have all of them scanned or photographed for the purpose of prints, and I have a good company that does that locally, but so if there's a favorite card that you have, I would love to hear about it. I initially was going to do these at random, but I'm going to do the ones that make me happiest when I think of them. But I would love to hear about your favorite cards and anything that you would potentially want as a print. But yeah, hopefully there will be a chunk that I can update about once a month. And I do try my best to put out videos every Saturday. And if there's not a video for some reason, I will be posting the reason why on the community tab on the channel. But I appreciate everybody who has gotten excited about this because it puts positive pressure on me to keep this going and keep up with my schedule and everything. And hopefully either by the end of this year or early as possible in 2025 there will be a deck available, and I'm excited to show it off along the way. Thank you. What have I done? What have I done?
Oh, hi. It's me again. I remembered that in the beginning of this video I was going to say something about why tarot cards are associated with Romani people, and no, I'm not going to be using that other word, because it actually stems from... It's a very similar format as to why people insisted that tarot cards were some exotic thing from out of Egypt, or this, that, and the other thing. it came along with learning why there's a certain group of people who is routinely mocked and worse associated with banks. Because that group of people, over time, they were excluded from so many other occupations that they had to gravitate towards whatever they could get, which turned out to be working in banking. So now it's turned around as something to apparently mock them for when the people who hated them forced them into that association to begin with. Once I learned that, the universe decided to plop into my lap the answer to why Romani people are associated with tarot cards, and that's because they would not get hired anywhere else, so they had to figure out some other way to make money, which was telling fortunes using tarot cards. Just like associating that other group with banks does not make banking some kind of cultural appropriation, associating Romani people with tarot cards and using tarot or collecting tarot decks, as far as all of the information I've seen over, I forget when I first learned it, over time, I have never seen a Romani person say using tarot cards is appropriating their culture. That makes just as much sense as the banking thing. However, insisting that it's some ancient occult device thing that's from all of these exotic places when it's not really. It was playing cards that were capitalized on, and the whole point of this video is make something your own in a responsible way. And I don't know how I'm gonna end this, but like and subscribe, guys! Seriously though, it helps. Because there are other things that I am being forced to do. Peace.